person from the one he has been before. His life transformation has happened as a result of developing himself. Now he uses the same principles of personal development to help others, most particularly the immigrant population, establishing themselves in the United States to change their lives through life coaching. Speech title, When You Change, Everything Else Will Change. Elvis.
There I was, struggling to dig myself out of the ground, and nobody was around to help. But I managed to remove myself like a zombie from the earth. When I stood among the living and looked back where I was just buried, my heart skipped a beat as I realized how close I came to die. How many of you ever been victim of abuse? Just last month, we had a guest speaker here who spoke to us about different forms of abuse. And then we realized that we too might have been victim at one point or another in our life. I was born in the city of Douala in Cameroon. It's a country located in the center of Africa. But I grew up with my grandmother in the village since I was 4. I was victim of bullies in grade school. Kids from my class and other classes took enjoyment in hammering at me with insult. They called me names. They even had a particular song about me, but not the good one. So this day, this kid called me by the mango tree where I was standing alone and told me, I'm gonna labu in my native language, saying that he was going to beat me. I didn't do anything wrong. In fact, I could never do anything to attract attention to me. And he quickly added that either I follow him behind the school or he was going to beat me in front of other students. Thanks God he gave me a choice, I thought. But that's how I followed him, just like a sheep. Behind the bushes, he grabbed me, beat me up, and buried me under the ground. The fact is, this kid was younger and smaller than me. I have always been bigger and taller than most of the kids who used to bully me. But why? Why did I allow him to do that to me? Why? I grew up suffering from this disease, the inferiority complex, that everyone was better than me. There was nothing. I felt that I was nobody. Maybe it was for good reason. But how would you feel if you spend your school life borrowing supply from other kids who would refuse? But when they accept, it would be under a condition. I've always found myself in people's home washing the dishes and cleaning the floors, simply because I want to use the textbooks to do my homework. But how would you really feel if food has always been a rare commodity in your life, much less what to wear? I remember being hungry. I often survived from corn and palm kernels. And that feeling paralyzed my life completely. Paralyzed the ability to express myself or even defend myself in the case of an attack like that. I was not the one who spoke in class. No, I could never. Even if I don't understand anything that the teacher said, I would not ask a question. But if the teacher point at me to respond or intervene for whatever, I would go through a spasm. My body would visibly shake. Even when I spoke, you could never hear what I said. I really suffered from that condition over 24 years. My family was a bit concerned, but not much. What's the big deal? But the news of my situation reached my aunt, who was living at the time in Washington, D.C. And she said she was going to sponsor for me to come to the United States. The idea of traveling abroad frightened me so much that I got sick for almost a week. But I had to come. I remember the day that I was actually coming, the entire village almost was at the airport to say goodbye. Simply because I was their bridge. I was the transitional person. I was their hope. It was not every day that somebody leaves the village to go to one of the greatest countries in the world. But I'm glad I came, because one of the first few places where I visited, among all places, was the buffet. Where you can eat till you drop. There was so much food. And for the first time in forever, I had the choice of what to eat. And I didn't waste time to exercise that privilege. But the turning point for me was when I noticed all the beauties that this country had to offer. Not only beauties in the sense of its infrastructures and streets and its people, but also beauty in the sense of freedom that this country embodies and all the resources that were available around. And when I realized the libraries were actually free, I quickly obtained the library card and checked out a pile of books like this, only to return them 3 weeks later without even finishing the first chapter of the first book. And I checked another pile again. But simply, I couldn't read. I wasn't speaking any English. But for some reason, I kept checking them out. Maybe it was to the feeling of possession, however temporary it might have been. Maybe it was to make up for the lack of supply that I had experienced in grade school. But I kept checking them out. But eventually, I would start to pick up things here and there in those books. Eventually, I would start to understand phrases and paragraphs contextually. And I started to read stories. Stories of people who have gone from almost nothing to accomplish outstanding things in their life. One such story was the story of Abraham Lincoln. He was born out of poverty, suffered a nervous breakdown, experienced the death of his fiancée and his mother, failed 8 elections and 2 business entrepreneurship, and went on to become one of the greatest men this country has ever seen. I was so inspired. And even through reading, I discovered some of the principles that you can apply to yourself to change your life. It was as though those books were speaking directly to me in the way I thought. Maybe they were. I started to apply some of the things that the books were teaching. I started to implement them. And things started to change. My life started to change. It was unfolding in front of me like frames of film. My vocabulary improved. I went from people saying that They couldn't understand what I was saying, to actually listening to what I was saying. There's a saying that in the country of the blinds, the one-eyed is king. I was sort of like a king in my little community, the community of Cameroonians who came in the United States. I saw myself picking roles as conducting prayers during meetings, reading documents when it's necessary, those things. I grew up believing and thinking that if you are born in such a family of great, therefore you will become great. But that belief started to disappear. No. You can change your life. I started to believe that you can actually change your life if you want to. At the same time, my vision started to expand. I thought it was possible. If it was possible for somebody like Abraham Lincoln and many other people like him who have gone from nothing to accomplish a lot of things in their lives, then it must be possible for me. And I'm telling you today that it's all possible for all of us. My life was transforming, almost miraculous. The sick, the introvert, the shy, the insecure, me was dead. Now rising from its ashes like a phoenix, the new me, full of joy and life, full of possibilities, with purpose and meaning. This was magical. So what happened during the process? My situation didn't quite change. My circumstances didn't change. But I changed. What am I talking here? I'm simply talking about personal development. I only worked on myself. I only developed my abilities. That's all I did. The principle of personal development says, if you get better, everything else will become better. And within that same principle, we know that becoming better, it's a continuous improvement. There is no moment at which you can stop and say, no, this is it. I've arrived at the top. So there is room for improvement in developing ourselves, our abilities. So it will be only at that point that you would have more stock on your value. You become more valuable. And then we all know, maybe not all of us, that we get paid only by the value we bring to the marketplace. The more valuable we become, the better we will get as our salary and what the marketplace will pay us in return. So this goes along the line of what Jim Rohn, the American foremost business philosopher, says. Work harder on yourself than you do on your job. If you work hard on your job, you will get the living. But if you work harder on yourself, you will get a fortune. So many would ask, so what area should I work? Should I really put in practice and to implement and improve that can make me more valuable to the marketplace? I have summarized 4 fundamental areas that you can start with, because those areas would actually influence other areas of personal development. The first one is your health. If you have your health, you have everything. But if you lose it, you will lose everything. My grandmother used to say, if you still live and are well, then it's all possible for you. It's possible to go on your job. It's possible to work on your dream. possible to take care of your family if you are healthy. So, how can we do that? It's simply by making choices and decisions every day that would really help us to stay healthy. Choices such as what gets in our body. Maybe eating apple a day can start to influence something. It may be nothing, but over time, you will start to see the effect. Maybe walking around the block, decisions such as taking an engagement to walk around the block. You start by walking around the block. It may be nothing, but over time, you will see the effect. Simple as that. It's about taking care of yourself. And those who have been doing that, even in this area, there's always improvement you can make. There are moments you can hit a wall here. It's about finding variation, especially if you engage into exercise routine. I'm very sure Rona can tell you more about that aspect. It's about variation to improve even more what you were already doing. Now, the second one is your faith. Now, many people, when you talk about faith, they have the tendency to believe that you're talking about the belief in God. Although that could be part of it, but it's also the ability to believe in yourself, believe in others, and believe in the things that you do that will take you to where you want to go. So by improving, growing in your ability to trust yourself and anything around you, whether you believe in God, that's fine. To be able to grow in that aspect will give you a grounding aspect of your life. Third, your attitude. Your attitude is the lenses through which you see and approach the world. You can work to have a positive mental attitude simply by cultivating the attitude of gratitude. Have you ever wondered why America is so wonderful, is so great? Simply because there are simple things that we take for granted. Simple things like the libraries. I found out recently that only 3% of the population has a library card. Those are the simple things that you cannot find anywhere. By cultivating those little habits of recognizing what's around you, what makes this place beautiful, appreciating the color, the shape, the form, the sound, would get you into that moment of having a grounding levity effect. And your attitude will change how you see the world. When I first arrived here, my first job was McDonald's. How many of you ever worked at McDonald's? Or maybe one person. I'll tell you this. This is the company that strives to start you at the minimum wage. And then the raise is almost non-existent there. When I started at McDonald's, they started me at $6.25 in the state of Maryland where I landed. Within 6 months, the manager called me and gave me 75 cents raise. That was unusual. But the explanation was, you have a good attitude. You smile when you want. Simple attitude can actually change things for you. Attitude will make you have more value in the marketplace. Now the fourth one, communication skill. Communication skills is the ability to touch people with your words and otherwise. That simple aspect of self dictated because we are in the society as one. We have a shared humanity. We are called to communicate anyhow. So the ability to use your word correctly, use your word well, and know how to influence people would actually change things for you. Will open the horizon of endless possibility. That's what it has done for me. When you work on those 4 things, it will actually influence other areas of your life. Whether you are a parent, whether you are homeless, from another country, when you work on yourself, when you develop your abilities, when you become better, you become more valuable, not only to your family, not only to your community, but most importantly, to the marketplace. Ladies and gentlemen, I would not be here today. I would not be doing what I'm doing, such as empowering others like me who come from another country, who experience the paradigm shift in this country. I would not be doing all that if it were not the magic of personal development. See, it's only when you change that everything else